and thank you for joining us. This is Looking Up, a podcast for Christian women. I'm Kathy Pollard, and with me is Carla Moore. And we're going to have a good conversation today about some things that are on our mind about why we need each other, why Christians need each other, why people need each other in general. And we thank you for giving us your time, joining us in our conversation, and we hope that what we say will encourage you. And Carla, I know your lectureship is behind you, and hopefully you got a chance to rest a little bit. What's up in your world now?
We did. We had a day off on Monday, which was glorious. It was wonderful.
Good.
Lectureship was great.
Mm-hmm.
It's always such a great weekend. But the day off when you don't have to get up early and you can, obviously you're still going to get some work done, but we went on a bike ride and I just went and ran some errands that had been piling up. It was just a nice, relaxed day. So it was great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. So now you're ready to start planning for next year.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. We have been making lists of things, we need to do this differently or we need to adjust that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure we'll have
Mm-hmm.
a meeting before too long, but there's always adjustments to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have you been thrifting since then?
Uh, I did, but I can't even remember what I found. I've slept a couple of times since then. I think I found a couple of purses to sell. Nothing
Okay.
exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Just yeah, sorry, nothing exciting to report on that front. And I have not tried the pizza oven yet.
Ah, I almost texted you the other day about that, and I thought
Mm,
she's still in lectureship mode. I'll leave her alone.
yeah, it's still sitting in the kitchen it's still got the price tag on it. But Micah sent
Uh,
me a pizza dough recipe. I was going to get one from you too and see how they were similar. And
mhm.
because I thought, I guess I can't just put like a frozen that would be blasphemous, wouldn't it?
No, you can do whatever you want.
Well, so is it? I need to look up the instruction manual online. I'm sure I could find it online to
Mhm.
see if you could do that. I guess you could. It wouldn't be from scratch like your amazing looking pizza that you shared a picture of today.
Well, you know what? I saw this idea. I haven't tried it, but I think I'm going to. But it was fried pizza dough.
What?
Yeah. So, normally you press your dough out and you put all your toppings on it and bake it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one was, excuse me, uh, they put it in an iron skillet that had a little bit of olive oil drizzled in it, and it had gotten hot and sizzly. And then they put the dough in there. And so it kind of did this little quick fry on one side, flipped it over, quick fry on the other side. And then they put the toppings on it and stuck it in the oven.
Oh, that make it crispy.
Yeah, that sounds really intriguing to me. So I think we'll
Mm-hmm.
try that.
Yeah. Well, several people that came for lectureship went up to Bojo's.
Oh,
And
yeah. Neil loves Bojo's.
we still haven't been up there. We usually go up at least once per quarter when we're here. But
Mm-hmm.
they, as you know, they put a big thing of honey, big container of
Mm-hmm.
honey on the table. So you eat your pizza, and then when you have the bones left, which is just the crust around the outside, then you can, well, as John does, he'll pour honey on that crust until it's like running down over his hand. I'm like, you leave some honey for the next person. I'd rather dip mine in ranch dressing than honey, though.
Oh, you would?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
It's
both
not
good.
it's not a normal pizza bone though. The crust on those things is
Yeah,
huge,
like
real
a
fat
couple of
and
inches
thick,
thick.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
that's
like
your
they press it
dessert.
out and then pull, like, or maybe they just press it out to where it's thicker on the edge. They don't roll it over.
I
Do you
don't
know?
know. I don't know.
Sometimes I
But
think they roll it over because there's like a pocket in there. But
uh,
anyway, whatever they do, it's good.
it is good. Yeah. Neil loves
Mhm.
Bojo's.
Yeah.
Um, hmm,
And there's more than one of them. So I think my favorites up in Idaho Springs though, because it's
Mine
in the
too.
mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, good
Yep.
setting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What's going
So,
on the homestead?
well, I was going to tell you that I was in Paducah, Kentucky with
Mhm.
the Central Church, and um, they got up and they were doing announcements and stuff like that. And then they announced that they had picked up something for Peaches, our cow. So, a little cowbell.
Aw, that was so sweet.
First time ever that I've been somewhere and
A
So we had
gift for your
a
cow.
gift for the cow. Yeah. So, and then it was kind of a week of surprises because Linda Matthews is our church secretary, and she gave me this old chicken dish,
Yeah.
this glass
Uh-huh.
dish in the
Hmm.
shape of a chicken, and she thought it'd be cute with our butter in there. And then she also gave me a French butter dish. Have you seen those?
I don't think
Those are the
so.
ones where I don't know how to describe it, but it's two parts, and the top part has a cup inside of it, and that's where
Hmm.
you put your
Yeah.
butter. And then in the bottom, you put water up to a certain level, and so you can turn that
Invert it.
butter, yeah, you
Yeah.
invert it into that water, and it's supposed to keep it cool but still spreadable.
Yeah.
So she gave me one of those too. So it was really
Neat.
sweet. And um, another neat thing, we were at the center congregation, and Ivy Waddell was there, and we were having a conversation, and somebody else was asking me about the things we've done with all the milk from the cow.
Hmm.
And I was telling her, and she said, "Well, have you made ice cream?" And I explained that I haven't because I keep looking at all these different recipes, and I'm almost overwhelmed with what is that thing, decision fatigue, or what is it, option fatigue, or
I
something
don't
like
know,
that.
but I know
There's
what you're
just
talking about.
so many different recipes, and I haven't really landed on one that I want to try. And this lady and I kept talking, and I didn't realize that Ivy had just immediately sat down and started handwriting out a recipe for homemade vanilla ice cream
Mm.
on the spot. And so I brought that home with me, this little handwritten note from
Ah,
her, homemade ice cream, all the ingredients, how to make it. I just thought that was so fun and sweet. So,
do you make it with raw eggs?
well, this one, it looks like it is raw eggs. It doesn't look like
Hmm.
you have to cook
Cook it.
them,
Yeah.
yeah, in
My
any way at all. But
my Meemaw's recipe that my mom always used was raw eggs, and we
mm-hmm,
just never really thought a thing of it. And I
mm-hmm,
know, I don't know. I guess I would think that by now it would be we'd be safer. I don't hear them talk much about salmonella anymore. I know it's
mm-hmm,
still out there, but you just don't hear them talk about it as much.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and all the recipes had it both ways. Some you cook it and make a little custard, and some you don't. Some didn't use eggs at all.
Hmm.
It would be milk and sweetened condensed milk, and I don't know what else.
Yeah.
But this one looks really good, and I'm looking forward to trying it. So I thought that was
That
sweet.
was a summertime tradition. Every Saturday night, I think it probably wasn't, but in my childhood memory, Saturday night was after Dad mowed the grass. We'd watch Hee Haw and have homemade ice cream.
Yeehaw.
Yeah, remember Hee Haw?
Yeah.
Bloom, despair. I don't
Go
remember the
ahead.
rest of it.
An agony on me.
Agony on me. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember that. My dad
Yeah,
used to watch that. Yeah, well,
yeah,
once I figure this one out, I'll try your Butterfinger ice cream
yeah.
because you have a good
Hmm.
Butterfinger ice cream recipe.
Yeah, we
You
tried
shared
that.
that. You shared that in the group, didn't you?
Hmm.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't find it, I'll send it to you again.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
worth it.
Did you see my vanilla wafer flop?
What happened? Were you
The
supposed to like roll them?
no, the recipe was a lie. That's what happened. The picture looked exactly like vanilla wafers, and I've decided they took vanilla wafers and laid it out on a platter. I did this recipe exactly. I let the butter come to room temperature. I chilled the dough after I made it. It said scoop it out into 1/2 teaspoon blobs,
Tiny.
very tiny, very tiny. And I measured it even, and I'm looking at it going, wow, those are really tiny. But I'm thinking, well, I guess as it cooks, it'll spread out and be the size of a vanilla wafer. And the recipe said, once it turns golden brown and it gives a time frame, pull it out of the oven. It never spread. It never turned golden brown. They just stayed looking like those little pale blobs. and
Hmm.
my mom had seen the pictures. She came by today and she said, "Well, what they look like after you cook them?" And I said, "That was cooked, Mom. That the picture was that was the after."
Uh-huh. Well, my real
So,
question for you though is why would you make homemade vanilla wafers when you can buy them?
well, because Neil loves vanilla wafers, and I thought it would be grand to make them homemade. I just wanted to
Hmm.
try that, and they didn't even taste like home vanilla wafers. They tasted like really soft sugar cookie dough. You know how like
Nothing wrong with that.
sugar cookies that you ice at Christmas time or
Yeah.
something. It tasted like that, but it just didn't. So I was making that to Into the Word, and I took them anyway. Neil said, Neil said, I feel like this, we should have like a Lord's Supper prayer or something for these things.
It looked like communion bread.
Yes, yes. They're just tiny little pale blobs.
Well, who
So,
cares what they look like if they taste good? That's my theory.
anyways,
I know you like
that
things to look
that
good though.
that was a big fail. So, what wasn't a fail? Here's another thing I wrote down to share. Um, Bart and Laura Warren. Do you know them?
Yeah. They went to
So
Israel with us. That was the COVID
that's
trip that
right.
they went with us.
That's right. Well, he
Yeah.
preaches in Glasgow here at
Mm-hmm.
South Green Street, and they came over the other day and they brought some chicken salad from this Fine Arts Bistro, which is a little restaurant in the square in Glasgow that Neil and I love their chicken salad. So they brought us a tub. Well, at that restaurant, they serve it on pretzel rolls.
Oh, I love pretzel rolls.
I do too. And they kind of serve it a little bit warm
Mm-hmm.
and it's to die for. So I decided to make some pretzel rolls and they actually turned out. That first of all,
Mm.
they were very easy to make. They didn't
Okay,
take
I'm gonna
long at
need that
all.
recipe then.
Yes,
Did you
and they
boil
looked,
them?
yeah, you briefly put them in
Mm-hmm.
the boiling water with the baking soda.
Yeah.
They looked like pretzel rolls. They tasted like pretzel rolls. I mean, they actually did turn out. So
Okay.
I'll
I have
share that
made
recipe.
pretzels
But
before, but like
mhm.
how big were they? Like 3 inches or so?
Well, the original recipe makes 12. So I just divided it in half. And then the rolls in the picture were a little bit small. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of cutting it into 6 pieces, I cut it into four because I wanted it to be more sandwich size
Mm-hmm.
instead of just roll size. So that's what I did. But you can make them just roll size if you
Yeah.
want to. But I wanted them
Yeah.
to for a sandwich. So
Yeah.
haha.
Yeah. Well, there's nobody nicer than Bart and Laura Warren.
Oh,
They're
I
sweet,
know.
sweet couple.
They sure are. In fact, when they got here, they said, There's a man laying in your ditch.
What was there
Yes. He said, Is that normal? I'm like, no.
by the road?
Yes. On
What
the other,
happened?
well, what did happen? Bart went down there to check on him, make sure he was okay. I said, Is he napping or having a heart attack? You know, he was down there and he was the trash pickup gentleman and his
Hmm.
truck had broken down. And so Bart went and checked on him and he said that he had already called somebody. They were on their way to bring the parts, but he was just resting. He was
He's
just
just sitting there,
resting.
huh?
He was just laying in the shade, taking a little nap. And so,
That's
anyway,
interesting. We were
yeah.
pulling out last night. We left the little house here like 6:15. So it was still light outside and it had just rained. And we were pulling out going towards the church building. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that corner where the mailbox is, the entrance into the school.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy like on a not a moped, but one of those small motorcycles,
Mm-hmm.
like a cross between a moped and a motorcycle. And
Okay.
he had a hoodie on. And he when we drove by, he like turned his back and faced the building. And I was like,
Sketchy.
that's sketchy. That's
Mm-hmm.
the word I used. I said,
Mm-hmm.
John, I wonder what's going on there. Cause he like as we drove by, he turned. And I said, we need to maybe take another spin around the parking lot just to kind of let him know we're here. And so we kind of turned around and went back around and he like did it again. He pulled a towel out. John said, I think he's just wiping off his motorcycle
Mm-hmm.
seat because it had just rained. But he kept acting really suspicious. And so we went around again and John pulled up next to him and just opened his window and he said, You doing okay? And the guy didn't say anything. He just kind of turned his head and that hoodie, you know, was pulled down over his face. And so John said again, Are you doing okay? And the guy said, Fine. And it was bizarre. It's like, I, you know, you kind of think if someone acts suspicious,
Yeah.
you need to at least let them know you've noticed them because
Right. Right.
you'd be able to describe them in a lineup later, I guess.
No.
That's where because I watch too many crime shows, I think my
Yes.
mind goes automatically to that.
We do too. We do
Mm-hmm.
too. And you're not trying to assume the worst, but you also want to be aware and be
Yeah.
smart. Pay
Yeah. Because
attention. Yeah.
some of the girls were coming up for a class and I thought, I don't really want them walking across the parking lot
Hmm.
with this guy standing by the door. And
Well,
right as
and
he pulled out right as we did, so he was
things have
gone.
happened in that parking lot.
Yeah.
So
Yes, they have.
many things have happened in that
Many
parking lot.
good
So
things, but a few bad things too.
yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
What else
Anyway,
do you want to share?
um, well, did I tell you or on the podcast I tell you about Clara broke her arm, broke the
Yes.
little
Well,
her
you
thumb?
told me. I don't know if you shared that on here or not.
Okay. Well, she her little thumb got slammed in a sliding glass door,
Mm.
and she's child number three, and she's tough. And I think she just kept on going. I know, I'm sure she cried when it happened, but she just kept on
Mhm.
going. But it kept swelling, so they took her to the doctor, and they sure enough she had a little fracture.
Oh,
So first they put a wrapped her in an ace bandage, but she I think unwrapped that thing 4 or 5 times before 24 hours was up. So they put a little pink cast on her, and Erin sent me some videos of her. She didn't know Erin was video. It's not videotaping anymore, Carla. It is whatever it is. We are not in 1985 anymore, are we?
oh,
But it's still a video, right?
yes,
Recorded
it
her.
works.
And
It
she was
works.
just playing by herself and putting her baby to bed, and that little pink cast swinging around everywhere. Anyway, she got her cast off yesterday, and she Erin sent us more pictures, and she's just so cute. And
She
and
is cute.
yeah, well, the picture that when they were putting the cast on her, Erin had her arms around her, and Clara's like giving the side eye to this guy that's wrapping her arm. And anyway, it made me sad that she broke her arm, but it was she was so cute with that little pink cast on.
And to have it slammed in a sliding glass door, ugh,
Yeah,
just
I
makes me
know.
shiver just thinking about it.
I
Ugh,
know. It
ugh.
breaks my heart. Is Rich
Yeah.
feeling better? You said he was sick last week.
He's feeling a little better. He still has some of that congestion. They're just having a hard time kind of knocking it out. But
Yeah.
Emily said today he's continuing to improve. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Good. Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm,
All right. Do you have anything else before we get
mm-mm.
into our topic? Okay, so
No.
we're going to talk about we need each other. And today, as far as I know, neither one of us has a list. We're just going to have a conversation, right?
I have a few little notes
Do you
jotted
have
down,
a
but not a
list?
list. Not a
Yeah,
list,
okay.
just
I feel
notes.
like we've been having a lot of lists lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's just have a
today
conversation.
we're just going to have a conversation about it. And I started thinking about this because we're learning a lot throughout this whole cow process. And there are things that you can read up on and study, but there are things that you just have to learn from other people who have been there, experienced it. You know, they're still doing it. And we have learned that we need their help. And you know this, but that's not always easy for me. I have this little problem with pride, and I don't like to ask for help. I don't like to feel helpless or needy or, that kind of thing. And
You think
so,
that's a pride issue?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. What do you
I
think it is?
I don't know. I guess I never really thought of it as a pride issue because I don't love asking for help, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's more that I don't want to bother somebody if it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I could do on my own. And besides, you're the one that I got the phrase, don't steal my blessing. I got that from you because you
Oh,
told me
yeah.
one time, don't steal my blessing.
Yeah, I got that from my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
but I was thinking about all these ways that we would never, and I've already said that on this podcast, we would never have been able to do this on our own. We
Yeah.
just absolutely could not.
Mm-hmm.
And no amount of preparation or reading or anything, we have needed people, bodies with faces and names,
Mm-hmm.
and I just find it um, such a reminder of how, especially as Christians, God's family or the church, we need each other and on such a greater level than something like learning how to take care of a cow.
Yeah.
And we as a nation, as a country, or really I guess as a whole world, I think some things have really shifted since the pandemic, don't you?
Mm.
With the isolation and people doing things more online, and more and more people are doing all their shopping online, and there's nothing wrong with that
Yeah.
because it's convenient. You found out how convenient it was,
Mm-hmm.
instead of having to go to the store. And a lot of us were having to worship online for a while. And And now that's still an option for people who can't get out or are sick or whatever. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that more and more, it seems like we're continuing to be isolated in some ways. And I know I have a very limited perspective. I'm not out there in the world and see everything, but it just seems like it's gotten so much easier to be isolated, to not be with people, to not have as much face to face interaction with real people,
Yeah.
community. And we went to the Homestead Festival this past summer, and I can't remember if I shared it on here or not, but they had an Amish guy on there that did one of the lectures, and he was just talking a little bit about what they believe and why they do things the way they do it. And they opened it up for questions, and I found it really fascinating that the reason they do the things that they do all comes back to community. It's not a religious thing. It's community. They want to be able to rely on each other, be there for each other. And if they limit themselves when it comes to transportation, technological advances, those kinds of things, they feel like would pull each other further apart, further away from each other, and they won't rely on each other as much.
Hmm.
And he gave the example of how, during financial crisis, the economy struggles or natural disasters happen. They don't feel it as much because they don't rely on things that have to come from outside places. They rely on each other. They have their own doctors. They shop from each other. They
Mm-hmm.
provide most of their good. And but anyway, the whole point of that is because they place this huge importance on community and continuing to need each other, which I think is admirable, and I can see what they're talking about. But when we were thinking about having this topic about we need each other, I just did a little brief research into the effects of isolation. And obviously, there's different types. Some are forced on us. Sometimes we just choose to kind of keep to ourselves. But the American Psychological Association says that the effects of that is it has brought out greater levels of depression, poor sleep quality, impaired executive function, accelerated cognitive decline, poor cardiovascular function, impaired immunity at every stage of life, and a doubled risk of early death.
Wow. Wonder how they connected all that with isolation.
Yeah, well, they go on to talk about how they did it by measuring several standards, social isolation, including marital status, frequency of religious service attendance, group activities, your number of close friends and relatives. So it sounds like it was a pretty broad study.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just amazing to me. I'm kind of thinking when I think of this idea of we need each other, I'm thinking emotionally, spiritually, we need to be there for each other and help hold each other up. But I mean, even physical, all these things are
Mm-hmm.
physical functions of our
Yeah.
body. God designed us to need other people.
Mm-hmm. Uh, when I had COVID a few weeks ago, and it's so much less severe now, and the isolation that we had in 2020 is nothing like it is now. I mean, it was so much worse then. But
Mm-hmm.
I it made me think back to how I felt then, just seeing half a face. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we isolated ourselves nearly as I know we didn't nearly as much as some people did, because
Mm-hmm.
we still got out. We had our family that we saw. We still saw a lot of people, church family. Excuse me. But I've heard a lot of people talk about how they wondered if they would ever see a whole face again. And
Mm-hmm.
even commercials, you would see commercials where they had masks on, and you just can't read a person's face by just the upper half. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you see a lot in someone's eyes, but seeing a smile, and a lot of times you can't understand as well because you don't realize how much you depend on looking at someone's mouth when they talk.
Right.
But just the all those feelings came back in a minor way when I had
Mm-hmm.
COVID, just thinking of um when someone looks at me, do they see like a leper? Are they, am I am I scary to them? And
Mm-hmm.
just those icky feelings of missing people, even just the 3 days that I was by myself or just with John. So yeah, it is a real thing. And especially for people who are isolated to begin with, if they don't have I think we have a huge circle that we see on a regular basis, church family,
Right.
physical family, friends, and they're all tied up together. So for people who work from home, some people like that. And I think for the people that like that, the pandemic changed that even more and made them even more probably introverted or afraid to be around people. And I know that people that listen to this may disagree, and I'm happy to hear what they have to say. But I think it probably just made an already narrow circle even narrower, and it made it easier to have those tendencies and maybe some fears of being around people. So yeah, I looked to see the definition of community because we hear that a lot. It's a kind of a buzzword, but it's a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common interests, attitudes, and goals. And I think that's kind of our definition of our church family,
Yeah.
And how many times have you said, and how many times have I said, what would we do without our church family?
Yeah, many, many times.
So many things, from baby showers and wedding showers and food when we're sick, or just people that express care for us. We need that. We need to know that we matter to people. And I think that we get that from our church family. And I just feel sad for people that don't have that. And I know that it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, and I don't know how much of this is self-sufficiency and independence. When I was talking about how we really wanted to figure, or I wanted us to be able to figure this out on our own, it's because I'm thinking, how hard can it be? I have access to information, and we all do. You don't have to go get advice from someone. You don't have to go talk to your grandparents. You don't have to talk to the older people who've experienced things. All you have to do is get on your phone and look something up. But that's, first of all, how many of those sources are trusted, and where's the just human experience and all of that.
Right.
And that's, you just can't replace that. And several years ago, I listed out all of the one another passages in the New Testament, and there are 34 verses that use the phrase one another. And a lot of them are, there are some of them that are like admonish one another, or we're not to judge one another. There are verses like that sprinkled in, but a lot of them have to do with, the overwhelming majority, in fact, have to do with the good that we offer each other. The fact that we need each other and we benefit from each other. And you can't help but look at this from both directions. There's the command for all of us to be there for other people. Because in all of these, it's, of course, there's a lot of them that say love one another. That one is found multiple times in the New Testament. But there's also build up one another and serve one another, bear one another's burdens, regard one another, abound in love for one another, comfort one another, pursue what is good for one another, stimulate one another, pray for one another, be hospitable. I mean, it just goes on and on. Minister to one another. So there's the command side of it, that we should be doing these things, and you have to be in people's lives to do these things. You can do some of this through social media or via text. You can encourage someone with your phone, but how many of these really need to be fulfilled face to face? But the other side of that is, we need one another, because I need to be getting that from you. And I need to be getting that from my church family. And we fool ourselves if we think we don't. If we think we're fine, sticking to ourselves, minding our own business, making it through life on our own, just us and God.
Well, but what you say about don't steal my blessing or don't rob me of the ability to bless you is really true, because
Mm-hmm.
it's it makes me feel good to be able to do something for
Mm-hmm.
someone to need me, because I think we all have a need to be needed. Sometimes that could be taken too far,
Yeah.
but sometimes I need you to tell me that I'm being ridiculous, or I need your advice on a recipe, or I need to know, we need to be able to do things for one another, just to express appreciation to, um, because God created us that way,
Mm-hmm.
to do things together and to be together and to need one another and to share. How can we
Mm-hmm.
share with one another if how can I share with you if you don't accept what I'm sharing with you? It's just
Yeah.
it's biblical.
Well, and I look forward to these weekly chats that we have because I get to see your face. We
Mm-hmm.
text throughout the week and stuff, but a lot of times in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not going to text that. I'm going to wait until I can see her face.
Mm-hmm.
But and as great as this is, getting to see your face while we're talking, there have been so many times when you've shared something with me, and I just want to be there with you. I want to
Mm-hmm.
hug you. I want to hug your neck. I want to cry with you. I want to pray with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even something that seemingly that simple, how important is that for us to
Yeah.
be with one another so we can give each other a hug
Yeah.
and look each other in the eyes and squeeze your shoulder, squeeze your hand,
Mm-hmm.
you know, go off and pray together.
Right.
God in his wisdom knew he designed us, he made us and designed us, and he designed us to be social and to need one another. And the overwhelming list of verses is just one proof of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were
And
talking
think,
about, but go ahead.
well, no, finish your thought because it's a little different. Mine's different.
Well, you had mentioned about the steal your blessing because when you do have an opportunity to be there for someone, it makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a class probably almost a year ago now. Probably Hiram Kemp was teaching it, but now I don't quite remember. I think I shared this in the lecture out at Bear Valley, but we had just had a class where the teacher, probably Hiram, said, raise your hand if you've had an opportunity to help somebody in the past month. And a lot of people raised their hand. And he said, how did that make you feel? And you
Mm-hmm.
can imagine
Yeah.
the answers. Good. I was glad to
Yeah.
be
You
needed.
want to help.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was glad. It made me feel good that they felt comfortable asking me for help. All those kinds of answers came up. They were all good. They were all positive. And then he said, raise your hand if you have asked for help in the
Mm-hmm.
past month. Not a single hand went up.
Mm.
And so the follow up question to that one was, why not?
Yeah.
And, of course, our answers were, we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to, we can figure it out on our own. It's just a minor thing. We don't want to bother anybody. All these reasons, excuses really,
Mm-hmm.
we give. And he said, but you just acknowledged how good it made you feel when somebody came to you for help.
Yeah.
And that has just stuck with me ever since. He's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. I guess sometimes we think it's embarrassing to ask for help. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's why can't I figure that out on my own?
Exactly.
Some app that, I don't want to spend the time to learn it, but I don't want to ask for help. But I mean, really, I love being asked for help unless it's something that I hate doing. I don't want John to ask me to help him paint a room somewhere, but I'll do it.
Oh, that's the worst. That's the
Yeah.
worst. Yeah.
But, I guess to be asked for help sort of is acknowledging that you know what you're doing in some area,
Mm-hmm.
or that they value your advice or they value your experience and knowledge. And just when you were talking a minute ago, I was thinking, as a grandparent, wouldn't you love for your grandchild to come say, would you help me with this project or whatever? And
Mm-hmm.
thinking back to my own grandparents, and maybe even more than that, I think back to my kids going to my parents or to John's parents and asking for help when maybe it was a school project about a family history or something, and how much
Mm-hmm.
they loved talking about those old times. And so just involving them in things makes them feel valued. And why wouldn't we want to do that? Make people feel valued. And in fact, maybe it's a way that we can express that how much someone is valuable to us when we ask them for help. It's
That's
a
a
way of expressing that.
really, that's a really, really good point.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I hadn't thought
We
about that.
we need that. I need
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, I
Yeah.
wrote some things down, and a lot of them are related to that. Like, and when you first brought this up, I told you that I had kind of been thinking about similar topic about things that we
Mm-hmm.
need from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ones that I wrote down is that we need to matter to people, that we need affirmation from people. And that kind of gets a bad rap these days, because
Mm-hmm.
when we tend to think about Facebook likes or Instagram likes or whatever, and people say you get that dopamine charge and you're
Mm-hmm.
getting your affirmation from social media, and they kind of act like it's a bad thing. But too much of it certainly is. But we still need to be affirmed, I think, by
Mm-hmm.
people, just to know that I need to know that I am valuable to my family. I need to know that what I'm doing in my workplace is valuable to them. We just need affirmation. We need to be needed. So those are some of the things that I wrote down, that is, kind of along those lines, that we're valuable in some regard. Everyone needs
Mm-hmm.
that. God made us that way.
So really, when you ask for help, you're doing somebody a favor.
Exactly.
Next
Except
time,
when you're asking for painting.
all right, next time when I ask somebody, I'm going to say, and by the way, you're welcome. I'm giving you an opportunity
And then you're going to see
to
a,
help me.
huh?
Yeah, I know in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't want to be that person, that needy, inept. Oh, here
Yeah.
she comes again. And I've mentioned this on here multiple times before, that Jeremy has brought us so much help with his cow, and he's not the
Mm-hmm.
only one. Our kids have all jumped in and helped with things, but I feel like he's the one that when we hit a quandary, we're like, ah,
Jeremy.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
so we started making these little goals. Last week is, let's see if we can go the whole week
Without calling Jeremy.
without calling Jeremy and asking for help. And then we did it. And then the next week, we're like, okay, this week, let's see if we can go the whole week without even texting him about it. Like, no cow conversation
Uh-huh.
whatsoever. And he doesn't care. He has made that
Yeah.
very clear. He's happy to help. He loves cows. He doesn't care. But in my mind, I'm going, I don't want him to see our name come up and go, for crying out loud.
It's them again.
Yeah. But it's like you said, you're showing somebody that they have the wisdom and the experience, and you value that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need each other. And I wonder, when we do wrestle with all the excuses, maybe it is we just don't want to feel like we're burdening somebody or bothering somebody. Maybe it's pride or whatever it is. But when we wrestle with those things, and it does keep us from either reaching out or accepting help, sometimes people offer things and you just don't accept it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
good, I'm fine, thank you. Could that be the devil just
Yeah.
kind of inserting his influence in there to keep us apart?
Yeah.
You think about the idea of being stronger together and
Mm-hmm.
being harder to break
Yeah.
together, and the unity that's built. I think about even our own community, made up of people who are poor, suffering, broken, lost, lonely. If
Mm-hmm.
they don't see us as a church family, needing each other and leaning on each other and meeting each other's needs, why would they want to come be a part of that?
Right.
And I think it would be so much easier for people in the community to be drawn to that, and not seen as, you're just a benevolence project over
Right.
here. No,
Mm-hmm.
you come into this family because
Mm-hmm.
that's who we are. We need each other, and we
Yeah.
help each other, and we're in each other's lives.
When we were doing college work, oh, excuse me, back in early 2000s, I remember thinking that this needs to be a place. The McCarty Student Center was where Christians on campus met during the school day, and after, in the evenings we do stuff together. But this needs to be a place where everyone feels welcome. And anyone from any walk of life with any interest who looks any way, we all had different looks, different likes, different styles, different irritations, came from different locations. But yet, because we had the body of Christ in common, we were all one. And if the church can't do that, then we're not doing the work of the church. We have to be a welcome place for every soul, because every soul matters to God. And so often we saw that, and not just in college work. I see it here at Bear Valley. I've seen it wherever we are. You're welcome here. And there are people who probably don't make people feel welcome, but that's because they're not doing what God wants them to do. But this should be a place where everyone is welcome, where everyone fits in, and where we express needs to one another and fulfill one another's needs and share one another's burdens. Because, like you said, the devil is who's trying to keep us isolated and apart, and God's the one who wants us to be together.
Yeah. Have you asked for help from anybody?
Well, yeah, I've learned to more. John is a really good delegator. And I've seen how that is helpful to people. They want things to do, and I tend to be one that sometimes I feel like if I want it done a certain way, I need to do it myself, and there are some things that I do myself because if I want them done a certain way, I got to do it myself.
That's right.
But I've also learned that my way is not always the best way, that there's other ways to do things. And when you open it up, it's like, wow, that's so much better than I could have ever done on my own. So I have learned, maybe not because I want help, but because I know that they want to help, and that it's good, makes people feel needed and wanted, and gives them value. So lectureship this weekend, I got the women involved in fixing the room, getting the room ready, and you just learn to delegate, I think. But personally asking for help, probably some, but not a whole lot. I ask you for recipes and advice, but not everybody. Somebody, it's people I trust. What about you? Have you asked for help lately?
Well, I mean, we have this cow.
Besides the cow.
Besides the cow. I don't think so. Not beyond, not that I haven't needed it. I'm just not good at asking for it.
Yeah.
I ask Neil for help all the time, and I think it's probably because he's the person I'm the closest to, and I'm comfortable with him.
You don't mind asking?
I don't mind it at all, and I know he doesn't mind helping me.
Yeah.
Makes him feel like the strong husband.
Well, even when all of our family's home, when the kids are home, like Christmas or whatever, I would probably tend to do everything myself, like in the kitchen.
Same here.
But he'll say, "Hey, guys, would you clean off the table?" And he'll say, "Would you do this? Would you do that? Would you do this?" When I wouldn't. I want them to feel like they don't have to do anything in my house.
Yes.
They did when they were kids, but he's not afraid to ask, and it's so much easier when everyone pitches in. So I should, I've just tried to learn from his example in that area.
Yeah, we have the exact same situation here. I don't want to ask the kids to do anything. I want them to be able to just come and relax. But Neil will say, "Hey, do you mind taking the trash out on your way out the door?" Yeah. And I kind of feel like going, Neil.
Yeah. But then you're Neil.
You're grown-ups. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if one of the girls says, do you need help with anything? If we're getting things ready, I'll try to think of something. Do you want to put ice in the glasses? Do you want to? But I won't just say, "Hey, would you mind helping me with whatever?"
Right. Well, we talked about that. What episode was it when you said?
It was, we did one on hospitality.
Hospitality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's along the same lines.
Supposedly, if you give somebody a job when they walk in the door, it's supposed to make them feel valued and have a purpose. And I can understand that.
Yeah.
So your homework for the week. No. You have to come up with something to ask for help.
Well, great. I'll figure it out. I'll ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you brought this topic up, my brain was thinking, shift this a little bit, but what do we need from each other? Not
Mm-hmm.
just that we need each other, but what do we need from each other?
Mm-hmm.
So here are some of the things that I wrote down, and you can tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, which apparently is pretty important to me, is understanding and kindness. And things like sarcasm, which is interesting because I used to be a pretty sarcastic person, and now it just grates on my nerves. I can't deal with it because I've tried to get rid of it in my own life because I just don't think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So, understanding and kindness. And then I wrote down respect because I think that's a relationship killer if we don't have respect. Even if we say, I'm just kidding, you
Yeah.
know, that
Mm-hmm.
that is a killer to me. One of the most important things to me that I think we need from each other is to forget the past.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have had this conversation before. You've told me, and I have found this to be true, that you'll forget things. Like I have told you
I know.
things, and like you'll say, oh, I don't ever remember names or whatever. And it's true, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
great because if later on I think I should never have said anything about that, that's I need to just let that go. And if I say anything to you, you're like, huh? So you either you're playing it off really good or you don't remember.
No, I don't. A lot of things I just kind of, I don't forget everything, but a lot of things I just kind of try not to remember or file away, especially if it's not important, you know, or it's a moment of venting or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Venting is usually when I say
mhm,
things that I wish I hadn't said later.
yeah, or if I hear something about somebody somehow that I probably shouldn't have, I try to just not ever think about it again, you know, because I don't think it's fair to that person. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I always do that perfectly because
How
sometimes
do
it's
you do
hard.
that?
Yeah,
Because if
sometimes it's
I ever
hard,
say to
but
myself, don't ever think about that again, then that's all I'm going to think about for the next 3 weeks. I need that little pin light that some movie, I don't remember what it was, but you look at the light and then you forget. Yeah, I
well,
need
you
that.
know how to remember somebody's name, you have to say it out loud or repeat it or share it with somebody else. Or to me, it's kind of the same thing. If I were to go on and share that conversation with Neil or
Mm-hmm.
bring it up again or revisit it, you know, then I would remember it.
Yeah. Well, it just got me to thinking about how I am not the same person that I was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people, again, this is like that. I think we were talking about this last week or the week before about how God does not judge you on your worst days,
Mm-hmm.
but we do.
Yeah.
I know I do. Um, if someone says or does something in my presence or that I hear about it or whatever, that's what's going to be primary in my memory about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think maybe this was a really traumatic time of their life when they had something going on and it made them behave this certain way. Or maybe they were 15 years old when that happened and now they're 30 and they don't act like that anymore, but that's what we remember.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I guess I need this from people. I need them to, if they had a negative first impression of me, I need them to give me another chance. And I need them
Mm-hmm.
to try to see me as God sees me. His mercies are new every morning. And ours are not new every morning. Ours tend to be, I'm going to hang on and remember the way you were
Well,
15 years
and
ago.
how petty is that too? Because as you're talking about it, I can see that you had maybe a bad experience with somebody five,
Mm,
7 years ago, and it could have been just they said something dumb,
yeah.
or
And
you're
usually
like,
that's what it is.
yeah, really? You feel that way about that? That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and then a few years later, you find out they're, excuse me, they're speaking or they've written or they, whatever. And the first thing that comes to your mind
Right.
is, huh,
That bad thing.
interesting,
Yeah.
or all of a sudden I might think that they don't have any value to add to the conversation. I don't really want to know what they have to say
Mm-hmm.
because of this thing, and that's
Yeah.
not fair. They're
No.
different people. They've grown. They've probably learned from that, and just because I didn't agree with them doesn't mean that I was right
Right.
necessarily.
Or someone else told you something about that person
Mm-hmm.
and you've made that decision or that judgment based on half truth or
Yeah.
someone else's skewed opinion or
Mm-hmm.
there's just so many different ways. And I feel like I have had this happen to me, so it has changed my opinion, to really give the benefit of the doubt to people and to try to
Mm-hmm.
see them differently, because I need that. And so when you started talking about things that we need each other,
Mm-hmm.
this is something I need from people, and I know that
Mm-hmm.
they need from me, is to see them with God's eyes. And it's not easy to do, especially if it's an offense that
Mm-hmm.
they've committed against us, which may not be an offense. Maybe we've got our feelings hurt or whatever. But
Yeah. Don't keep score.
yeah,
Don't keep the little tally marks. Oh, that was dumb. Check. You know?
right. And isn't that part of First Corinthians 13 that
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if I need to study that and make sure I'm not taking it out of context, but love doesn't keep record of wrongs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was to me a huge one. Just to what I need from others is to forget or to overlook my past mistakes or bad judgment or even words. When I've told you things that I shouldn't, I need you to forget that I said
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's a big one. Another thing that I think of that's really big, a need that I need, something I need, is safety in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've read this quote before, but I think it's worth reading again. This is basically about friendship, but it says, "Oh, the comfort, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, having neither to weigh thoughts nor measure words, but pouring them all right out just as they are, chaff and grain together, certain that a faithful hand will take and sift them, keep what is worth keeping, and with the breath of kindness blow the rest away."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you look at that, what we need is to feel safe with someone. And, I don't really want to be around somebody that I don't feel safe with. Do you?
No, no.
Sometimes we have to,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't worry that my words are going to be twisted or taken out of context or repeated or, looked down upon. I just know that if it's something that was not wise on my part, that you're going to say it was a bad day for her, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Listen with grace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But being confident in a kind and faithful friendship, that's something that I think we all need. And I sometimes I look around and I wonder if everyone has that, and I know that they don't. And so what are we doing about that? Are we looking for people to include in our friendship? This is, cliques it's a tough subject, because I
Yeah.
think that it's such a delicate balance, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a need. People need to feel like they belong. But if you're accused of having a clique or being in a clique, when you're just with friends, and maybe you didn't invite the whole church or the whole group or whatever, um, because you don't have to. But, on the other hand, if you're the person that's excluded, it's really painful.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah. And
What's
I
the
think,
answer to that, Kathy?
please, I don't have answers, but I do think that some cliques happen innocently, like you said, because people that enjoy being together are going to naturally start hanging out together
Yeah.
and visiting. And sometimes you have personalities that aren't going to do that. They're just not going to hang around. They're not going to put themselves out there. They're not going to initiate, and so they need to be gently brought in and included. And I think that's where the responsibility falls on us, is just to be looking for those. And
Mm-hmm.
who is who is having a harder time kind of assimilating into the body of Christians around you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell, and I think that's different from the ones who, say we're in a worship setting and they run out the door
Right.
right away. They come
Mm-hmm.
in late and they leave right away. They're showing
And then say
clearly,
that nobody said hello
yeah,
to
but
them.
they're showing clearly they have no interest.
Yeah.
But then you've got ones that just kind of stand around and they're not really talking to anybody, nobody's really
Mm-hmm.
talking to them, they do want
Yeah.
relationships. And those are the ones that, we can think of ways to bring them in, include them. I think a clique is excluding,
Mm-hmm.
and it can happen unintentionally, but a lot of times intentionally.
Right.
And only hanging around a certain group of people every time instead of trying to talk to other people, only ever having those people in your home instead of
Yeah.
inviting other people. I think some people need to be careful about making that accusation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
If
sure.
that's not what really is going on,
Yeah.
people aren't always being cliquish just because you see them standing up with a group of friends.
Yeah. Well, how do you include someone? I mean, I think sometimes even the way you position yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
can just shift your body to where that person that's kind of standing on the fringe,
Mm-hmm.
you're not have your back turned to them. You can reach out and, put your hand on their elbow and give them a squeeze and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge their presence, or just turn and say, what do you think about that? Or I think
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of different ways that we can include people without not being involved in our circle of friends, although we've always heard you can spend time with them outside of worship,
Mm-hmm.
or the time after worship. um
Well, in your conversation topics,
mhm,
are you talking about something that only involves you and
yeah,
those two or
inside
three
jokes
other
and
people?
stuff.
Yeah,
Hmm.
or something y'all just experienced together? That can be hurtful to somebody, standing on the perimeter that didn't experience that with you. And not
Hmm.
that there's anything wrong talking about it, but be sure to shift gears and talk about things that will make it easier for that person to feel included.
Yeah, bring them into
Yeah.
the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one. um but anyway, that's one of the things that I thought that we need as humans is it's just relationship. I think we need laughter.
Yes.
And sometimes you can't make that. I mean, some people are just funny.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of new students, and they're young. I mean, 18, 19 years old, but they go around all the time pretending to be their dads. And it's kind of hard to explain because it's
What?
hysterical, but they're going, yeah, yeah, they're making these dad sounds and talking about, one of them said something one
Uh,
time about, yeah, they're on that talk tick again, and just being silly, and it's funny. People, there's just people that are funny,
mm-hmm.
and they know when to turn it off.
Right,
I do
right.
have to say they know when to turn that off. But laughter, that just happens when you feel comfortable with a person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that involves spending time with them and developing a relationship. But yeah, I think I need laughter. I think we need listening ears with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't always do all the talking. We have to listen. Something else I wrote down was, this is a big thing to me, is certainty.
Certainty.
Yeah, just not wondering where I stand.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think I've said before, if I feel like I have to compete for a friendship, then I'm just going to
Mm-hmm.
walk away, because I just don't do that. I don't feel like I want to compete.
Mm-hmm.
But is that dumb to
No.
need to feel that?
Mm-mm. No, that's a good one.
Then there's affirmation. I think I mentioned that a minute ago. The need to be
Mm-hmm.
needed. Um, Fitting in. I think we all need to fit in. And I read a quote from Brene Brown, and I don't always love her stuff because I think she talks over my head sometimes, where you really have to concentrate on her stuff. She's got some good things. I'm not saying anything negative about her, but I
Mm-hmm.
tend to listen with half an ear because I'm doing something else at the same time. But
Right.
she said one of the biggest surprises in this research was learning that fitting in and belonging are not the same thing. In fact, fitting in is one of the greatest barriers to belonging. Fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. I thought that was interesting.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Kind of
Mhm.
had to think about it,
Yeah.
because it's not just about fitting in, but about belonging. Anyway, those are the things I thought that things that I need, and that other people might not need the same things that I need, but just
Yeah,
my
and
thoughts.
especially women. Women need women, don't you
Yeah.
think? And I
Mm-hmm.
know not all women feel that way. Some women just want to be with their husband. They don't really feel like they need women friendships, and that's fine. But I feel like especially women need to be there for each other, because there's just a different level of understanding, and what a blessing when you have a Christian women that
Mm-hmm.
you can spend time with and get together with. And every now and then I see, some congregation or some person, they share something. And I always think, what a great idea. And it's some little opportunity for the ladies of the congregation to get together. And it might be for some fun thing, it might be a devotional, it might be just coffee. We're all going to get together for coffee or whatever. But I thought, I love that. I love
Mm-hmm.
people that make those opportunities happen.
Right.
And it takes intention. Just, that word keeps coming up in this
Mm-hmm.
podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of those things that takes intention. You can't just say, yeah, we need each other.
Yeah.
I'm I'm going to be there for you and I'm going to let you be there for me and then
Mm-hmm.
go about your day. It takes thinking about what does that look like, practically
Yeah.
speaking. And maybe that just means in small ways. I'm not necessarily gonna pick up my phone for all my answers all the time. Maybe one
Were you
time
looking to
this,
see if there was a text on there that we can't read?
no, maybe one time this week, I will call a friend or
Yeah.
ask a lady at church and have a face
Mm-hmm.
to face conversation about it. Or, maybe it starts in small ways. Maybe I was thinking about the idea that I shared in our last podcast, from the deacon in Florida who wrote down the memory
Mm-hmm.
verses. I thought that would have been something fun to do together.
Yeah.
Get different color cardstock and ribbon or hole punch and stickers and markers and all the things, and have everybody sit around the table with coffee and
Mm-hmm.
snacks and write down each of those verses on those individual cards. And because that's something that you can do, but still visit. And then when you leave, I thought that should have been a together thing.
Yeah.
And little things like that, what can we do to encourage? Because we're not gonna reach out and ask for help if we're not comfortable, like you said, if we haven't spent time, if we haven't formed relationships.
And doing something
um
like that gives an opportunity to make those relationships happen and
yeah.
get you talking and get you laughing and get you sharing, and then you walk away from that, craft memory verse night with 10
Mhm.
new friends.
Yes, and I was thinking about that when you were going through the things that we need from each other.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those things are relationship building, and a lot of those things come from this one another list right
Yeah.
here. The things that you mentioned is exactly what God has told us to be doing for each other. But even the laughter one, how refreshing and delightful it is to run across somebody who makes you laugh.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you go, oh, aha, oh, they're
Yeah.
funny. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
when you share a laugh with someone, it seems like it just strengthens your relationship. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, it makes you feel good, but it also builds a relationship. And it's such a small thing, but you would have missed out on that if you weren't with that person.
Right. Yeah. I like that idea. We should
Mm-hmm.
both do that at our respective places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you were talking about communication, I'm gonna have to look back at a note because today I've been preparing for class tonight, which by the way we're not having because like lots of people have COVID. But our topic, the class is on personal spiritual growth, which you used to
Mm-hmm.
teach.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so tonight's topic was prayer, growing in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through and I looked up the word pray. I just searched for the word pray. And so of course there's all kinds of other verses that might not use the word pray or prayer, but it might say praised, or there's all kinds of other words for prayer in scripture. But
Mm-hmm.
I just searched for the word pray and looked for the different ways that things that people prayed about in the whole Bible. They prayed for healing. They prayed for children. They prayed for deliverance. They prayed to know God, prayed for God's presence. They prayed for strength. They prayed for forgiveness, prayed certain different favors from God and requests. They prayed in sadness. They prayed in assemblies. They prayed in thanksgiving. They prayed for vengeance. They prayed prayers of praise. That's a tongue twister. Prayed for sacrifice, for boldness, for love. They prayed that God would hear them. They prayed for peace. They prayed for others. They prayed that the word would spread. I went through and looked at how not to pray, how to pray. Mm-hmm. But all of this is communication with God, mm-hmm. And it's developing a relationship with God, and it's talking to God, and it's humbling ourselves before God, which develops a relationship with God. It's asking for his help. It's bragging on him, praising him. It's focusing on who he is when we talk about his attributes. And all of those things, it just got me to thinking when you were talking, that is how we have a relationship with God, mm-hmm. when we communicate with him. And so similarly, how do we develop a relationship with people? And I think a lot of times it's when we open up about these same things. We're not praying to other people, obviously, but we're communicating that we need, when we ask them to pray for us, for healing, or when we talk about our struggles, whether it's wanting children or family struggles, or, there's just all different ways that we struggle. And when we communicate that to other people, then it builds that trust and builds that relationship. So mm-hmm. Anyway, I was just, when you were talking, I was thinking this is very similar. All of these things that when we talk to God and we build our relationship with him, we can talk to other people, fellow mm-hmm. Christians, and build our relationship with them.
Yeah, that's good. And so we're recording this on Wednesday, and I'm already thinking that, how you said one time, you probably don't want me bringing this up again and reminded you how, because maybe you didn't say it on this podcast.
Whisper it in my ear. Text it to me.
Not always wanting to stay after if John's not there.
Oh, yeah. I think I said it out loud.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah. All right. But, you just don't feel like
it's
it.
Weird.
And I understand that. But because sometimes if Neil's out of town, I'm thinking I actually could just go on home if I wanted to.
Skip out and get home. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, it's Wednesday night, middle of the week. A lot of times you are tired on a Wednesday night and probably don't really feel like getting cleaned up again and heading back out, especially when it gets darker, mm-hmm. But you know how you feel once you get there. Typically, mm-hmm. you're glad that you've gone. But at the bare minimum, you're glad that you're gone because you're glad that you went because you've learned and studied God's word and mm-hmm. probably had prayer, and you probably did some singing, and all of that builds you up. But are we robbing ourselves when we don't stay and look for, and not that you have to talk to every single person and have mm-hmm. a 10-minute conversation with every mm-hmm. single person.
Be the last to leave.
Exactly. But you can talk to someone.
Yeah.
And you can go look someone in the eyes and have a real conversation. You can shake some hands. You can have some physical contact. You can, mm-hmm. And then you've had your spiritual nourishment from the word and, that communion of being with fellow Christians. And I think especially for introverts, it just feels like effort.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just really too tired, mm-hmm. But
Discomfort.
We need each other. We need each other. Yeah. And you're blessing yourself and them if you just take the trouble to say, I'm just going to walk up to this person, and it doesn't have to be awkward, but look them in the eyes and have a real conversation. And, sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes that's the starting point.
Well, you're helping someone else mm-hmm. by helping them belong and helping them feel involved, but you're also helping yourself. Mm-hmm. Because you're doing what God wants you to do and reaching out to other people and not being so in your head. Sometimes we just get in our own heads and we don't want to get out. And even for introverts, and you and I are both, even though people may not see it in us because they're mm-hmm. watching us have a conversation, but we are both introverted, and
Mm-hmm.
we have to kind of sometimes make ourselves reach out to other people. It's gotten easier for me over the years, and I think it has for
Mm-hmm.
you too.
Mm-hmm.
But even introverts need other people, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
in smaller doses, and or just smaller groups or
Mm-hmm.
in quieter ways. And I know that that is kind of how I, large crowds, I feel like that meter is just, I'm drained, I'm just exhausted,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what it is. It's just the way it is. But in smaller group settings, or when I'm comfortable with people, and I have a part to play in being comfortable around people, because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm constantly running off, then I'm never going to feel comfortable with people. So if I make myself stay, someone's friendly to me, I get to know them. Um, it's just helpful. But being around other introverts, I was having this conversation with another introverted friend the other day. It it just makes me feel better that I can do something to reach out to someone who also feels uncomfortable, and we
Mm-hmm.
can face it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think sometimes we just make too much of it. This is going to be hard work. It's going to be awkward. I'm going to sound like an idiot.
yeah.
Where's my list of questions?
Mm-hmm.
But the more you know people and you build that relationship, the easier it gets, because you can think of, like, I'm thinking in my mind's eye of the people that will be standing around in the fellowship room after Bible class tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start building relationships, you think, I know this person's been taking care of her mom who's
Yeah.
been really sick. I know this
Mm-hmm.
person is got a trip coming up. I know this person just had a wedding. I know this person, what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And that's where you start,
Mm-hmm.
that
Ask
looks
them
like
about them.
that looks like a beautiful wedding.
Mm-hmm.
you know how's your mom doing this week? It's just life. It's just
Yeah.
experiencing life together. It's not meant to be this awkward, now I got to go make conversation with
Mm-hmm.
people, but
Yeah.
to be family. And if you remember that we're family and we're God's family, you know, um, then it's not meant to be burdensome that we need each other. It's meant to make our Christian walk that much sweeter and that
Mm-hmm.
much more blessed.
And incidentally, social media gets a bad rap, but you can find out a lot about people on social media and then use
Mm-hmm.
that to ask them, like you're saying about the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That was a beautiful wedding. Or I think it makes people feel special when you remember their kids' names,
Mm-hmm.
or their dog, or whatever it is, just something that you remember about them. I know it does me when someone asks me something personal like that. I'm like, oh, they
Mm-hmm.
remembered me, or they know what's important to me. And so I've tried doing that. I've tried to just to be personal, not too personal, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to.
A different
I can
topic.
think of all kinds of inappropriate things that you could ask people, and I'm just going to stop there because
Well, share that list in the group, why don't you?
how's that
Well,
new
even
medication working out for you?
seems like those side effects are kicking in.
No, I'm going to stop there because
All
I
right,
feel it. I feel it going out of control here.
an easy place to start if you really are having trouble with it is most places have church directories now.
Mm-hmm.
And probably every service, when you show up, somebody's going to be having a birthday or an anniversary.
Yeah. Yep.
And that usually comes out in the calendar. You could just look for those people and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, just wanted to say happy birthday. I hope it's been a special day,
Yeah.
and how hard is that?
Yeah. That should be our call to action this week with this podcast, to say everybody set a goal to make
Mm-hmm.
3 other people feel special this week.
Great idea.
And I think
Yes.
anyone of any personality type can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be a threatening way. You can do it with a little note, that you pass, or mail, or, a text, or a social media reach out, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or just, like you said, happy birthday, or,
Yeah.
just make sure that you don't get the wrong person, or although that's a conversation starter.
It
Oh,
is.
no,
It
my
is.
birthday's not until March, but thanks.
Well, that is a great way to wrap up this conversation then. That'll be our call to action.
Okay.
We will each pick 3 individuals to build up one another.
Mm-hmm.
lift up one another, greet one another, all those things from
And you
that
can do
list.
more
So,
than three if you want to.
yeah, you can be an overachiever.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
You can be too friendly.
All right, so we will wrap up this episode with something good for you. So this is
Mhm.
where to sort of thank you for hanging in with us to the end. We try and share something we think you'll enjoy, something you might enjoy looking up or trying or experiencing or tasting or whatever it might be. So what have you got for everybody this week?
Well, it's something that I have had for several years. I have a couple different sets, but they are flannel sheets from Target.
Oh,
And I guess it may be kind of a strange place to buy sheets, but and I honestly, I'll just say this: I haven't shopped at Target in months because I'm not
mm-hmm.
crazy about,
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like they are pretty blatant in their,
Yeah, they're a little in your face about some
yeah.
things. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to say that anybody else should. That's just my
Mm-hmm.
own personal, I'm just not. So I
Mm-hmm.
haven't, but I have two sets of these sheets from several years ago. And it's the Threshold brand. And they're only like a king size set of sheets, only like $40, which is not bad for a
Mm-hmm.
king
Right.
size set of sheets.
Mm-hmm.
But, it makes me happy because it's finally getting to where, in Colorado anyway, in Texas, we would still not be on flannel sheets. But right now, when you get in bed and it's freezing cold because your sheets are cold, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Mm-hmm.
you have flannel sheets, it doesn't have that cold shock factor. And they're just warmer. And they
Mm-hmm.
have these particular sets of sheets they're not 100% cotton. So they're cotton and polyester and something else, but they are very soft and they wash up really well and they fit well. And so I think they don't have to be Target brand, but any flannel sheets. But I think that these are pretty affordable. But I love ours. I have two different sets. One of them's Christmas set, and I like them. That's my something good.
Well, if I'm ever living on my own, I might get some flannel sheets.
Neil, would he be a
I,
sweat monster in there?
yes, I do not think he would go for that at all. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
year round, we sleep with fans on and
Mm-hmm.
we have a lightweight top blanket anyway because he doesn't like really thick comforters.
Yeah.
But even in the winter, he flips that off and only sleeps with a sheet. And then we have a very thin blanket, in
What do
between the
you
sheet.
do when
And
you get cold?
I usually put an extra blanket on my side of the bed. Yeah. So I love the idea of flannel sheets, but I don't think he would go for that. Or maybe
You know,
when he gets old and his blood is thinner,
yeah, good luck.
listen.
In Europe, you get your own sleeping, like you have your own blanket, the European style. In fact, in some places in Israel, it's two beds pushed together if you want a bed together, or you can push them apart. But they each have their own set of sheets and their own comforter. And it's kind of awkward to make it up if you make your bed, and I like to make a bed,
Yeah.
but I've been tempted sometimes to try that because John moves around a lot and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So
All right.
anyway.
Well, that's a good one. Mine is brownies for two.
Mm,
Yes. So yesterday I was just trying to think of something fast and quick, and I don't really want to make a big pan of brownies because then I feel like we'll eventually
yeah.
eat that whole big pan of brownies, and we just don't need
Mm-hmm.
to. And I found a recipe for brownies for two, and I loved it because for several reasons. First of all, because the ingredients are so minimal, I just pulled out a shallow bowl out of my counter and literally mixed it all up with a fork
Mm-hmm.
in that shallow bowl. And you use a loaf pan, um, like a bread loaf pan, and you
Mm-hmm.
can just line it with parchment paper if you want, and you scrape that batter down in there. It cooks up in no time at all because there's not much batter. And then it even includes a recipe for a frosting that has like one little tablespoon of cocoa and a third of a cup or a half a cup of powdered sugar and like 1 tablespoon
Yeah.
of butter. It's just like and you don't use a mixer for it. You just mix
That sounds like a bite
the
to
the
me.
butter and everything, and it's got a couple tablespoons of milk, and you mix it all together.
Mm-hmm.
and then you spread it on top, and it is just the right amount. The recipe said it would make 4 normal size brownies or 2 big ones.
Yeah.
2 big ones. And so anyway, I just whipped that together, and Neil came home and he was so surprised. He was like, brownies. And I pulled it out and put it on the cutting board and cut them into 4. It actually made 4 big pieces, not 2.
Mm-hmm.
So it says brownies for 2, but technically it would probably be about 8 normal size brownies and 4 big size brownies.
Mm-hmm.
But it was perfect. And you know, and then you don't have to worry about it hanging around. It's really easy. It cooks up fast. It tastes amazing because it's from scratch,
Yeah.
but it's just as easy as using a brownie mix. It's stuff that you already have, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will share the recipe in the Facebook group, but
sounds good.
It was fun. It was fun. It was just right.
Pretty funny this week. You know, I knew that we would have company because we're right next to the church building. And so I knew we'd end up inviting them home. And so I was prepared with some different, I made some chicken spaghetti at a time. Anyway, I bought one of those little small cheesecake things and it had eight tiny little slices in it. And thinking, you know, that would be a dessert. But I had to hide it. I put it underneath some vegetables in the vegetable drawer because I knew if he found it, he would eat it. And then I also bought some, oh man, these are good. Magnum bars. They're little miniature ones though.
Oh yes, those are so
I mean, they're
good.
tiny, but it's plenty for me. And I put those strategically in the freezer too. And so the first meal that we had company and I brought out the cheesecake, John's eyes were like, where did that come from? And then when I brought out the ice cream bars, he was almost insulted that he couldn't find them. So now he's probably going to be in there digging, throwing things out, trying to find the hidden desserts.
He thinks you've been holding out.
Yeah, well, I had to save him for company. Anyway.
You know, Mike Vestal at PTP one year invited us over to his cabin afterwards for Magnum bars.
Well, he's the one that introduced us to them. Because last time he was here, he brought some over and now we're hooked. And they have them all over Israel, but I guess I was afraid to try them because I'd like them because now I do. They're good.
Did I mention the Oreo ice cream bars last time?
I don't think so.
All right. I probably should have saved that for something good for you, but Sam's has in their frozen ice cream section Oreo ice cream bars, and they're out of this world. We got those when the college kids came over, and some of them had 2 of them.
Is it just Oreo crushed up like for the cookie part or what?
The ice cream part itself is Oreo, and then the chocolate covering also tastes like it's got crumbly Oreo bits in it or something. It's just really, really good. And I didn't really think it would be a temptation for me because I was like, yeah, probably not. And then I tried one. Things are really good.
Yeah. Some things I just can't buy.
Yeah. But they're not real big. I mean, they're kind of average small.
Okay.
All right.
Still so probably 280 calories, I bet.
Yes, anyway, I'm sure.
Blah, blah, blah.
But good conversation. Ladies, we invite you to communicate with us over at Looking Up on Facebook. We love hearing from you and hearing your thoughts and ideas, and share with us why you think we need each other, and let us know if you took up the challenge and encourage some people this week. We'd love to hear about that also. And Carla,